Hi Ingo, how are you doing?
Hi, Adam. I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on your podcast. That's a really nice opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, because I would like to know what was your first computer?
Oh, my first computer was a very special one. It was an Epson HX20. That was like one of the first handheld devices. My father used that at the university, and he brought it home, and he gave it to me, and that's when I learned programming. It was basic, built-in basic. And it had a small line printer and a cassette drive, and yeah, I used it to program small games on the built-in screen, which had 40 times 4 characters. It was very
160
limited.
pixels.
Yes, absolutely, something like that.
Epson, I never heard that they built computers. I thought, they are printers usually.
Yes, they used to build computers in the 80s, and it was very high quality. I still have it here. I actually, yeah, just so you can see it. It's this is how it looks like.
Wow, it looks really nice. So it is actually incredible. It looks like I would say a how to call it a fancy Apple like, right? Almost an Apple like style.
Yeah, it has a very refined finish, very good keyboard, and it was like built to last a really long time. But of course, its capabilities are severely limited. And yeah, it was in use actually in commercial use. I saw it even years after it was obsolete. I saw it as in a restaurant for taking orders. So there was commercial use for that, but it was really nice for me to learn programming because it was so limited, and I had to do everything myself, and so that was really the starting point. And I also wonder like how it is today to get started with programming. It's a very different environment when you like have this huge amount of things that you can start with, and it's really difficult to focus on something.
I think it is easier. The problem is the motivation. Back then, you had to do this to do something useful with the machine, and now it's too much distraction, right? So from
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You don't. Back then, I really had to do things to
exactly.
do anything useful. There was nothing on it, so you had to do everything yourself. So that's
Which were yours was it roughly? If you got the
yeah. That was 1983,
uh-huh.
84, something like that.
Okay, this is really advanced machine. So it looks even, the keyboard is nice and it's like, metal elements in there. So it looks really nice and high touch, right? So this is like, yeah, I never saw this. So it's really interesting. And you immediately wanted to start programming or you had to, right? Because there were no games.
There was no game. So what I did, I programmed games using sprites. You had this was character based, so you couldn't really draw anything, but you could make custom sprites. And so I had to move a character fluidly across the screen. I made all the various sprites so it could move vertically in one pixel steps and stuff like that. So that's those were the challenges back then.
But there were no
And
external monitor, right? It was everything on.
you could have an external monitor, but I didn't have one.
Okay.
It was just this, but there was the possibility to have one. Was everything was very expensive, and of course I couldn't buy anything. And the only documentation that I had was like the book where it explained basic, and that was it. That's what came with it. No internet, nothing, nobody to ask really. So it's a very closed world, and that's very different from today.
How many programs you wrote on the machine? So it was like you spent all your time hacking something or one?
It was just parts of my free time. Then I had a friend who had another computer, and we programmed there as well. So I had some other things going on, but I did like to do that. And but I initially didn't want to get really into programming. I was more interested in physics. So that's my background really. I studied physics and I also did a PhD.
But what happened after Epson? So you or which software you wrote on the Epson? So it was one game you mentioned. Was something else, or what you did with the machine?
Right. Yeah, I did some stuff for school. So
Okay.
things that were useful for school. That was some projects that I did. Also, like I brought that at some point in the classroom and did something with a teacher. Some interesting projects where you could use a computer, which was really novel at the time. There were no computers really that you could like carry around. So that was the novel thing here, and everybody was really amazed when they saw it. And so that's something that I was fortunate to have, because my dad brought that from the university, and he really didn't need it a lot, so he could lend it to me.
And what is your next machine?
Oh, and then we have the IBM PC. So that was the next step. And I actually, I learned C. I learned C++. So that was the progression.
So if you got the IBM, you started, I guess, a little bit basic, and then
Basic, and then going to C.
And you never played games.
I did play games, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so you got the IBM to play games, or were you more interested in programming?
In programming, definitely. Also for writing games. That was
Okay.
also something that I started out with the PC. And writing games was always interesting in the early days. Yeah. Even more than playing, I guess.
Okay, so you got it. Do you had an idea? I would like to write game like something, or I would like to implement something like this, or you just enjoyed working with the machine.
No, I did have ideas. Like I liked certain types of games, like Pac-Man style stuff,
Okay.
something like that. So that's what I wanted to do, and I was always curious about it. How do you do this really? Yeah, because it was not obvious how to do things, and you couldn't really search for anything. That was still, you had to like find out everything from scratch, and that was kind of a challenge. And I always liked challenges, to do something that was really difficult and try to break through and. Find out how something works.
Okay.
Even like
So
even with a profiler, when we get to that later on, that was also like a challenge. I was looking at the profiler and said, "How is this possible? How do they do this?" And that's like the starting point.
okay, cool. So and how you started C? So you are no more happy with Basic, or why you started to learn different programming language?
Yeah, of course, Basic was extremely slow, and I was interested in physics and I was doing simulations, and that was really not possible with Basic to do anything interesting. So I started to learn C because I wanted to have like fast calculations, and that was really the motivation for it.
Okay, so and then you started. There was obvious that you would like to study, right? Not computer science, physics. You said
Physics, yeah, physics was my main interest really.
why? So why you were so fascinated by physics?
Physics, like all the usual motivations, like if you think about the future, science fiction, stuff like that, space travel, astrophysics, all these things are fascinating and so on. So that drew me into physics.
That's interesting because this drew me to informatics or computer science.
Yeah, it could also be. Yeah, that was also. I sort of had both interests at the same time, really. I used my interest in computers to do physics. I also became an experimental physicist, not a theoretical one. So my physics was always dominated by writing programs to analyze data, do presentations of the data that are recorded, and so on. That was always like at the core. So it was a combination. It was a fusion of both interests.
Okay. That's so. And what happened? So you learned then basic C and C++, right, during your study?
Basic C, C++, and then I did a job on the side, which became very important for me, where I worked with database tools, DBase, FoxPro, these they don't exist anymore, but they were very
Yeah.
important at the time, early 90s and so on. So that it was my entrance into the business world of data processing and so on, and I did lots of work in that area. So that gave me a different background. Then when the web age started, I started exploring what languages you could use there. I started with Perl, but didn't really like it. So when Java came around, then that was great. That was a revelation, and I immediately jumped on that train. And,
But you worked as a what did you did after university? So you started as a software engineer, or what was?
yeah, I did parallel. I had the job where I worked in a company that did the data analysis for pharmaceutical companies, and I did my studies at the same
Hey,
time.
cool.
And so there was always the two things in parallel. And when I did my PhD in 2001, then it was kind of, I had to decide what is more important for me. And then I said, it's more important to work with computers. I can give up this application development and so on. Also, the physics that I did was not exactly, I did.
No space travel.
No, I didn't. I was working with materials and so on, and it was not as fascinating as I did. It
Okay.
was back.
What was the title of your PhD? What is the title of your PhD? The title.
Yeah, it's X-ray diffraction on quantum dots. So it was looking with synchrotron radiation at the surface of semiconductor surfaces where you form quantum dots. So this is something that could have led to advances in quantum computing and stuff like that. So it was in early days, and we were looking at how these quantum dots, if they were crystalline or not, if there were dislocations and so on, if you could use them for various purposes. And so we went to synchrotrons and recorded a lot of data there, and then made models to explain it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
Big
that
data almost.
was sort of somehow when I finished it, I thought, okay, that's fine, but I don't need to continue that. The computing thing is more, there is more potential in there.
Okay.
So that's when I took a regular job and continued my career there in computing.
Oh, so you continued a career in computing where? In radio?
When I did the PhD, when I finished the PhD, then I took a full-time job, but not at the company that I worked all the time during my studies. I also finished that, so I did something else. And that was the time when there were lots of startups in e-commerce space and so on. And I worked for really a number of companies. And they all went bankrupt, one after the other. So that was a little frustrating. So you work on something really with all your energy, and then they have to throw it away because the company doesn't exist anymore. That was the time. So 2000, 2001.
Yeah, exactly. And which programming languages you used then?
And that was already the Java age. That's when I discovered Java, I thought, oh, this is it. This is what you have to use as for application development, and so that's when I focused mainly on Java. And the companies I worked for were all Java shops.
Okay, and this was like e-commerce, I can imagine, right? E-commerce.
E-commerce, yeah, that was all e-commerce in some form.
Servlets.
Yeah, basically. So at some point when that was all over and the .com bubble was burst, then I thought about this cannot go on like that, and I want something to do something interesting. And then there was this option that my brother was also free in the sense that I didn't have any immediate things to do, and we were talking and said, let's try something. Let's try to build a tool. And the profiler was on my mind at that point because I was working with performance problems and was using profiling tools. And I was, as I said, I was fascinated. And I thought, how do they do this? It's just, sometimes seems a little bit like magic. How do they get that data? And then we said, yeah, we can try that.
Exactly. Back then, I used a lot the performance accuracy tracker JProbe. I remember. This was back then. Then Optimize It, I think, also. But Optimize It.
Optimize It was my tool, so that's what I was I thought that Optimize It had a better UI than JProbe. JProbe had like more features always, but Optimize It had this slicker presentation, and so JProfiler in some sense is a little bit inspired by that, the initial decisions. How you start out, and this is with the product. It's always like how you start out. There's some basic DNA that you cannot really change later on. It always goes on. These very first decisions that you make, and it's always it's not bad to look at something that you like, because these decisions are like very important. You cannot undo them, and yeah. So we were really happy with that.
So you started with JProfiler because you would like to understand how profiler are working?
Yes, absolutely. That was something that was really curious. Of course, it was as a business opportunity, but I was just curious. I said, I want to do this. I want to find out how to do that. And at the same time, I thought this is really expensive as a tool and so on. We can sell that for a lower price, and so we did. And yeah, it against all odds, I have to say, against all odds, we succeeded and got some traction, and people started talking about us, and that was yeah, not given. So, like when you write a tool, it's really difficult to sell it.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very difficult. And I've also, like, even for profilers, I've known now a couple of people who have tried that also in other for other languages, and it's just not. It's very difficult to get the traction and to get the amount of features that you need to convince somebody that this is something that they should pay for. And I was.
So you with your brothers, okay, we start a company, a profiler company, and we create a tool. So how you approach that? So I mean, you started with system current millis, or what was the first idea, or how you approached the problem, and what was the first prototype?
Well, we started developing we had a plan, like in the sense that we knew what features we would like to have in version 1.
Yeah, which features were there?
Mainly first revolved around the call tree. So we said, like, the most important thing is to see this call tree. Like back then, of course, there were no open source tools or something like that. There was nothing. So like today, this would not be feasible, because today the list of features that you would have to build up to get a minimum viable product would be immense. So you would take years to write all that, even with a larger team. But back then it was like, if we have this call tree and maybe a list of hotspots, then we'll be good. But of course, that when you do this, you get this a more sense of what is really required, and then other things came in, and you need some memory analysis and so on. We need to have that as well. So that expanded, but still it got done very quickly. So like the first version that we released was released after half a year. It's just half a year of programming until we had something, and we could sell that, and that was really amazing. Yeah, it was.
And was it the name was JProfiler from the beginning?
JProfiler, yeah. We started like with that very down to earth.
And how you sold the was it like a box? Was it online sell, or how you promoted, marketed, and what you did to sell it?
Yeah, that was already the time when you could only sell online. Some people thought that was strange, and they expected that they could also buy the box, but it was already like the point where you could say it's not really required to have a box. And so we had this service. When you sell like software, you have a service provider that does all the credit card thing for you and writes the invoices. And so back then there was Element 5, it was called, still exists. And that was a great help in setting up like all the selling stuff. Of course, you have to program a website and things like that, but so they have all these collateral stuff that you have to do. But it's not not so much really. You can use third-party help.
And which year was it? The initial release? In which year?
2001.
Wow.
2000, no, excuse me, 2002. So 2001 we started developing. 2002 was the release. 2002, February 2002 was JProfiler 1. So that's more than 20 years in the past. And yeah, so like for more than 20 years we have really been continuing to develop this full time. And as you can imagine, how much stuff has gotten into the product in the meantime. And of course, it like the product grows with the ecosystem, grows with the JVM. Like the JVM was a lot simpler back then, and also like the profiling was very different. We did not have the JVM TI, which is the tool interface.
But what you did at the beginning, you just created an agent, you hooked into the JVM. Was it a native code? How the JProfiler profiled in the first version?
Yeah, there was an experimental interface which was called the JVM profiling interface, the JVM PI. So that existed already in Java 1.2, and there was also something for Java 1.1, but we never supported that really. So it was Java 1.2 plus, and that's basically was an early interface on how to get runtime information from the JVM, and it also it had different capabilities than the JVM TI, which then came later in Java 1.5, and there was only instrumentation. There was no sampling in the beginning. So that's how we started. And instrumentation, of course, is if you instrument everything gets extremely slow. It had huge overhead, like the first version had. Was very slow. And
all profilers were slow back then. So I remember we profiled with the C-Tracker one, but also extremely slow.
Yeah, so that over the years that the overhead has gotten lower and lower and lower. And like for instrumentation, even there, like if you say like the JNI calls that you have to make, they have become so much faster over the years. So even that has gotten better. And for sampling, now we have really a revolution in Java 17, and that we support in JProfiler 14 in the latest version, where we use the thread local handshakes to really to get like zero overhead for sampling. That's like async sampling now, and so you can really use the normal JVM TI sampling if you don't care about the single thread save point bias, which is really not for normal applications not significant. So that is really now we're in a state where that's very good in terms of overhead, and very happy about these changes in the JVM that they made.
How fast you sold your first copy? So you announced the software, how long it took until the first download happened?
The first download happened the same day. Like it was very easy to get attention back then. There were software sites, like there was one site called Fresh Meat, which is today you can use that name, but back then it was like there was not so much political correctness or whatever. So there was the Fresh Meat site.
Exactly, this was like an ugly looking site with just links to everything, right?
It's just for Linux enthusiasts and so on, and you could like post your releases there. And there were not so many. There were like people were really interested, and people were like in this pull mode where they would go and look for stuff, and then you could just post on various websites. There was one site called the server site, still exists, but then back then they had like an announcement section where you could like self-serve post something, and it would really get clicks. And people would really come. Today, these things are very different, and it's very different to get anybody's attention because everybody is in constant overload and has this shield up, and you cannot do this in the same way. But back then, it was really easy to get some clicks, and so the downloads happened immediately, and we had our first sale after 2 weeks, which was great. Yeah, it was really great because like we had 10 days evaluation periods, and that time span people can use the product with all features, and then after that they can buy it, and that was like really quickly somebody bought it, and that really validated our product. And then it was like, of course, it was slow going for a long time, and we had to improve the product a lot further until we really could like live of the money that we made with it. But like a year later, we were there, let's say. So it was like 1.5 years, and we had like we could cover our expenses, our living expenses.
It's a great feeling, right? So
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Yeah, it's also like I wouldn't know. I often think about what would I do today if I were to start a company and try to make some money, and yeah, it's really difficult to know what to do. But even back then, like, people were not supportive of what we were doing. They said, no, this is not going to work. You're not going to make any money.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are your customers and so on? Do you have connections? You have to have a sales force and all these things. Like that was not a good business model in the minds of people. But we did it anyway because we just wanted to do it, and it was like retrospectively the right decision because it was the right time to introduce a new profile into the ecosystem. And then there was like 2 years later, there was another profiler, which is a competitor of ours, the JProfiler, which was also still the right time to do that. And since then, we sort of, we are the two main competitors in that space. And that's that. But now it would be very difficult to program.
So there was no venture capital, nothing involved. You just, bootstrap yourself.
Yeah, we just did it ourselves. And
this is what I really like. So I also never understood, why you have, to of course, if you build, I don't know, computers, you need some, budget or some investment. But for software, you could try to bootstrap yourself. And I think it worked in your case. But still, very courageous. So I would say back then, I wouldn't start, to try to create my software, because I would say this is almost impossible, to sell it. But you prove me wrong. Which is really good because you can achieve something if you really like to. So this is with almost no effort. You worked hard, but it's not, you just focus on the thing, and it worked. How important was the user interface for you?
Oh yeah, the user interface was super important. So that was also, this is also always like something that we really think about very, very hard, is like how do we get the concepts across, because like the profile is a difficult tool, and it's like you have these two main tools that you have. The one is the debugger and the profile. The debugger is straightforward. You can have a lot of features and be configurable and stuff like that, but it's straightforward how to do things. But with a profiler, it's difficult because you have all these trade-offs, and you have to sort of convey that to the user and or do things automatically in such a way that they do the right thing and so on. And the user interface is extremely important in how do we get the user up to speed. Also, the user who is coming in with the profiler is not somebody who spent a lot of time reading the documentation and learning the thing and so on. They usually have a problem and want to solve it, and they just downloaded it and so on. So it has to be extremely intuitive, and it has to be extremely quick in the sense that you can find the feature that you're looking for, and it should work, and present the data in such a way that you understand it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things when you collect data, when a profiler collects data, that are difficult to analyze.
And you wrote the user interface in Swing and then JavaFX, or what is it actually?
That's a Swing user interface, just like IntelliJ IDEA, for example. So it's interesting. Like Swing there was like points in time where people said, "So when are you gonna like redo this and something else?" Like there was the SWT time when people started. Some friends of mine redid their entire user interface in SWT, which I don't think was a good decision then.
No.
And because they said, Swing is ugly and so on, and Swing is slow, but the ugly and slow went away with time. Like today, we have very good look and feels.
This is why I ask you, because in dark mode, JProfiler looks really beautiful. And I thought, okay, this is actually, it is slick. So the story was, I used Citraka JPro back then. And I somehow confused it with JProfiler. And I knew JProfiler, but my feeling was, so I look at the JProfiler and I say, this is some, Chinese companies are doing something. I don't know what they are really doing. And I was curious. And I click on the About button, and it was for Munich. And I say, this is crazy. Someone in Munich builds a profiler, and I'm also living in Munich. So I say, this is crazy. And then I download, and it looked beautifully. It was like in 5 minutes, it just worked. And I say, this is great because I spent some of my time, in task forces, helping people, if something is wrong, to fix stuff. So I'm always curious about profilers. So even I think the JProbe or Citraka, they are out of business. I think, right? This is
yes.
Because I tell you a funny story. I've written a book, J2E and Java E patterns or something like this, and I don't know how they approached me, all the profiler suite on the CD of my book. And back then was very common, like to get some software with the book. And then I was called like 5 to 10 years ago by someone asking me whether I would like to have the source code of the JProbe Citraka, and I say whether I would like to buy it. And I say, why buy it? I mean, I help you, to sell it. I supported you, and yeah, it could be interesting, but why I don't need your code. And what they try to do it, to sell it. I think this was like they tried to sell they somehow they found me and they forgot to look it up, and they thought I'm like an investor, but I was just the book author, and I could actually buy the Citraka code, Citraka source code. And the conversations, you completely confused me. It would be nice to have the code, but I have no idea what to do with it. And then we had a podcast about Bitrace. You remember Bitrace?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you were mentioned, and then I took a look at the tool, and then immediately bought it. So it can be actually interesting because I'm always interested in performance, and it was nice. The only criticism I have, there is no Visual Studio Code integration, but I hope you are already working on it. This is NetBeans is great. I use NetBeans and I use IntelliJ, but right now I use Visual Studio Code for Java a lot, and Oracle released LSPs. So your next weekend you should implement Visual Studio Code. This is a huge.
I'll do that. I'm always looking for these kind of suggestions.
Because this Visual Studio Code, I have. Also, a YouTube channel, so everything I do with Visual Studio Code, and why I'm doing this, because I'm also, from time to time I have to do JavaScript, and Visual Studio Code has great JavaScript support. Okay, and then I was too lazy to switch to something else. And what's really cool in Visual Studio Code is a lightweight mode. Is called, you don't need a project, you just open Java source code and you can work with it. And this is sometimes interesting if I'm in consulting mode for my clients. So,
I see. Okay.
So I think Visual Studio Code is huge actually. So I would say I think they have bright future because they get stronger and stronger. So if you have it, I of course will also use
it. Thanks for the feedback. Definitely, that's something we're definitely going to look at.
I saw there's no Visual Studio Code, so I was a little bit sad. I was like, I don't care. I click once more, and then JProbe just started standalone. And I was happy. So I immediately was able to profile. I just started core because I was curious and I'd already connected, and there was amazing experience, I would say, because back then I had to do more, with the older profilers. So this is how I approached you. It's like, we have to talk, and you are a very capable Java developer, of course, and I don't know you. This is strange things, we are on conferences everywhere, and you are like, completely unknown. Yesterday I was on a conference and I asked some speakers, do you know JProfiler? And they say, yeah, we heard about that. I say, okay, where it comes from? And no one knew it's from Germany.
Okay, our website is in English. So
but it's interesting, right? That something like this. And Richard Beer, it says, he did the JavaFX. He was one point of time, the chief designer. He tweeted about JProfiler released a new version. And which is interesting. So this is why I'm talking. So I was just, okay, this is interesting. I would like to know what they are doing, because you are a Java developer. No one knows you. Great product. This is interesting. So you are like the Java spy.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm not really present on conferences. So that's maybe goes back to when we started like developing. We thought like we have to use this online only mode in the sense that we do online, we do ads. We in the beginning we did also a lot of like Google AdWords. That was very new then. It was also a lot better than it is now, and stuff like that. And we said we don't have a sales force, and we also like let's not start by trying to go to conferences and so on, but do the online marketing approach first, and that kind of stuck around. And yeah, it's
You should do it once, just to go to a bigger conference like DevOps and say, look, how we build, a Java product. Let's say it will be interesting, discussion like that. And but because you are a little bit unknown, I would say, and I also was not aware. I think there's like small company just fiddling something, with profiling. But I think your kit is the thing. But yeah, so this is why we are talking. And how I find you also is we had a conversation with Bitrace. And you sponsored Bitrace because you gave them, open source license. And I asked them, why you are using JProfiler? It's like, yeah, because, back then open source projects could get a license. And I click on it, and then I say EJ Technologies, like this is like Chinese or Indian company. But then I found out, you're in Germany, so which was interesting because I'm always a little bit cautious, with buying something. And but then so okay, there's not a problem. No, in Germany, you know what to do. And okay, interesting. So. What are, I would say, what was the first unique feature of JProfiler back then, I say you had the call trace, this was usual, but there was something that you say, okay, this is like unique, JProfiler feature back then, the version 1, 2, or whatever. Where you started to be different, or is there something different, what's your strength?
Well, in terms of in terms of the user experience, one of the things we did differently from the beginning was that we showed. We did not have this snapshot-based mode where we said we record a snapshot and then we show the results of the recording, but that you could dynamically look at stuff as it was being recorded, and that was different from the beginning. And a lot of people liked that because they can open the hotspots view and then see tuck while they're doing something with their application, stuff is recorded, and is it the right thing, and so on. So that was in terms of the user experience, that was something that was different. And then we started developing our unique features over time. And one thing, for example, that people think that is in particular a strength of JProfiler is the way that you can start profiling on remote machines without going to the remote machine and installing agents there, modifying start scripts, and so on. So we have this, when you go in JProfiler on the quick attach tab, of course, you see the locally running machines, as you would also do in Visual VM and so on. You can click on them and start profiling. But you can also do that with remote machines. You can say, I have a remote machine, I just have an SSH connection, and you just put in your credentials for the SSH connection, and then, whoops, it lists you.
Okay, SSH, okay, cool.
The remote machine. You don't have to do anything on the remote machine, so it's all transparent. And it's not only the SSH connection, it's also when you work with Docker, you just say, okay, show me the Docker containers on the local machine or on a remote machine, and then you can select a JVM in a Docker container and profile it, or on a Kubernetes cluster. That is something that's particularly hard to profile. If you want to do that with some only with an agent and so on, how do you even connect to it? I mean, there might not be a way to get a socket through to your machine where the JProfiler UI is running. Something you would have to do certain things, modify containers, and so on. It's not pretty. So that is something that is really important for people to even get started with profiling in a way that is not a hassle, that then doesn't require them to do a lot of work or to find out how to even do things. So that's one thing. And and then of course in the profiler you have various topics that you deal with. This is sort of a collection. You have different topics that the profiler has to cover, like CPU profiling, memory profiling, and then you have higher level functionality, and that is really very important for JProfiler. They have this higher level functionality, the database profiling, the HTTP calls, the incoming and the outgoing, and stuff that revolves around not like the method level thing, but something above that. And that is, for example, something you do not have with the open source profiles. You get some memory and information and call trees and so on, but all this higher level stuff, that is something that makes JProfiler really unique, and I would dare say also with respect to our other commercial competitor. For example, like you can have things like that. You can follow HTTP calls, like REST calls, into a different JVM and get a connection between the call side and the execution side.
Oh, this is cool. This is like X-ray is called on AWS. It's like open tracing, right? So you could actually follow the call from one JVM to the other and profile both.
Yeah, with tracing, of course, you can do that, but then you modify.
No, it's like tracing. It's like tracing, right? Because with tracing, you could do this. What is you don't see what happens inside, but I would see, the outside call with all the methods involved. So it is like you cannot do this with open tracing, but with open tracing, you could at least see where the call is going. And with your JProfiler, we would see the first JVM calls the other JVM, and we see the call stack of both JVMs, right?
Yes, you have like two windows. You profile both JVMs, and then you can jump in both directions. You say they handle these calls, and they're coming from that other JVM, and you can see the call tree separately, so you can really like do that on a per request basis. So this is stuff that is a sort of enterprise functionality that's really important to our customers. Like most of our customers have Spring applications, Spring Boot applications, some things like something with the database, something with REST calls, IO bound stuff. That's also like why usually async sampling is not the right choice for this, because it limits the amount of data that you can collect in probes, and that's why I'm so happy about the recent advances in the JVM that allow this zero overhead sampling without async sampling.
Because the JEP, or what is it in particular which allows you zero overhead sampling, or which functionality, which interface helped you, to do this?
The thread local handshake. So like with sampling, the problem was always like you have to stop all threads at a safe point. They all run, you stop the threads, every thread has to stop at a safe point for that particular thread. Then you collect the stack traces, you let the JVM go again.
Okay.
So if you have just one thread, that might not be so bad, because you waited for it to stop at some safe point, and there are a lot of safe points in the JVM, like every method exit is one, I think. So this happens all the time. So it's not a problem really. But if you have a multi-threaded situation, then it affects really the performance, because you're stopping threads for an extended amount of time until you can get the stack trace. And the solution then you get huge overhead and you get huge bias. In some situations where you have lots of threads that are CPU bound, then it really matters. So that async sampling was the solution to that, but it's an unsupported experimental interface, and it produces a lot of garbage also. So you have this trade-off between it's more accurate and there is more garbage and so on. It's difficult. It's not an ideal situation. It would have to be reworked. There are proposals for that, but it's unclear if they will go into the JVM. Anyway, we will support whatever is there. We would like to see an improved async sampling, but for now, it's for Java 17 plus. The normal JVM TI sampling is a very good solution, especially if you have like a normal application. In the sense where, say, normal application is something that also does IO bound things and not only CPU bound stuff.
How many developers you have? You just you working, you building this everything by yourself?
Yeah, that's my brother and me, and that's how we work.
This is perfect because it's also my secret plan, to code as long as possible. So I was always afraid to create my own company because then I'll become CEO or CTO, and I'm not coding anymore. And I'd like to spend my time with technology, not managing people. So this is why really interesting that actually how much you can achieve if you consistently doing something, right?
Yeah, it's a big cathedral in a sense. Yeah, that build over the years, and you always add to it. But there's always more to do. There is no shortage of things, of plans, and so on. It always goes on, and of course, like there's always these external factors, like the JVM throws at you problems after problems. Like for example, Java 21 virtual threads.
I wanted to ask you how you deal with millions of threads. This would be my next question, right?
Yes, that's something. Of course, that's an extremely difficult problem for every existing profiler. That this basic assumption of like the number of threads in the JVM is of the order of 100 or something like that, or 1,000 maybe, but not more, because the operating system cannot do that. That has broken down, and now you have millions. And usually when you collect data in a profiler, you would like to do that on a per thread basis because you don't want to synchronize stuff. And you don't want to have a lock and like put something in a data structure that is accessed from multiple threads. So we had to rework our entire data collection mechanisms for everything, especially for all the probes. Yeah, we have lots of these probes in these high-level systems. So that was like a year of work or something, to do that really right. And so we're pretty happy now with how we came out of this. But it looks like a nice feature that the JVM added, but it's a huge amount of work for us. And that happens from time to time. Like when we had the module system, the Java 9, that was a big problem for us in very many ways. It was very difficult. And that was also like this watershed moment where lots of libraries and tools fall behind and say they don't make the jump. They don't go to the other side and so on. It weeds out the old stuff, and then you only have the new stuff. So that was the module system. And in a sense, when you talk about the source code for JProbe, so they will have only the JVM PI, the old profiling interface. They did not make the jump to the new one, and that was when they stopped the product. So this is sometimes these technology changes where the vendor says, okay, this is too much work. This is not worth it to do it because we're not making enough money. So let's just stop. So that's basically how it is. And the same for optimizers. They both did not go into the modern world of the JVM tool interface. So that's basically.
But still amazing that you can do this because you don't have a huge team behind you, so there's maybe lower risk, and if you focus on your work, you can achieve amazing things.
Yeah.
So you have basically one pizza team, right? So you can say. What Yahoo said, Yahoo was pizza teams for microservices. So JProfiler is a pizza team, one pizza team.
And we have a second product as well, which has a funny story and is also very successful, which is Install4J. If you look that up, which is a multi-platform installer builder. And when we started to ship JProfiler, the first thing we did not have was a native launcher, like an exe on Windows that you could start. We didn't want to have a start script that brings up in Windows Explorer the terminal and so on. That was not an option for us. We wanted something a little slicker, and we saw how NetBeans did that. They had a native launcher then that was an open source project then for the only really real IDE back then that was available. And then we started writing our own launcher, and we said, "Wow, that would be a product. Like people need that, just to create an executable launcher for your Java application where you say this is a class path, this is the main method, and so on, all these things. And then you create this executable that then starts your application. And so we did that, and that was called Exe4J. And the people bought that, and we used that for launching JProfiler on Windows. But then, sort of, you know how things go on in terms of features. We said, like, we also like then we want to make installers, directly, and also for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. And of course, a product like that existed, was installed anywhere. It's also one of this still exists, by the way. And then we started to do something like that, and we got sucked in. And that's our second thing that we're doing. And
so with Install4j, you can build, you can create installers for your Java software to ship it, right?
Yes. You have launchers. It's especially for server authors, because like the main strength there is also you can define a UI where you like visually program stuff and have text fields and actions, and you can ask for a port, for example, or. These things that you usually like when you deploy software, and there's lots of server software, it has to be installed somewhere. There's also desktop software, but like in a low percentage. But that's what lots of people need, something that works on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Especially on Mac OS, things are very difficult in terms of deployment.
Yeah.
Because people don't know how to sign and notarize.
Exactly.
Application bundles are and so on. This is all stuff that people don't really want to learn. They just want this to work and so on. And then that's a good tool. So these are both our tools, and that really came from the fact that there was nothing that we liked. So we looked at Install Anywhere and said, no, this is not good. This looks clunky and it doesn't.
Yeah, this is what is a little bit my feeling, right? So that the developer and user experience is very important to you. How it looks like, how it feels like, because I played a little bit with JProfiler, and I just was curious about the overhead. And you want me, the JProfiler want me. This is too much overhead, but I did it, and it was nothing actually, basically. And so okay, cool. So how far I can go, and then I try to turn on everything, and then one point of time I say this combination is not recommended, right? So this was from nice touch, right? Because from the beginning I get a guide which makes sense, what doesn't make sense, but it was not invasive. So I would say. The user experience or the UI is really good. This is why I ask you, because it was a complete different experience what I expected, right? And this is maybe your Epson computer was, no? This is the JProfiler looks like the Epson. It's really slick. Yeah. And this is unusual in Java. This is unusual in Java, really, because most of Java desktop software, even commercial one, was not that nice, so put it this way.
That's true. But you can really do this. There is this look and feel now that is used by many. It's even used by NetBeans now, which is the flat laugh. It's also a guy from Munich. He lives near Munich, and he develops that look and feel.
Is this Tony Apple? No. Tony Apple?
No, Karl Tauber.
Okay.
He also has a product for designing UIs, but this is the look and feel that is open source and has this nice dark mode and so on. Also has like support for the IntelliJ IDEA themes that you can theme this, and it's really nice. And it's a really nice UI, and so there are these options on the JVM that make Swing a viable option. Of course, Swing is not a nice API, and it's not modern and so on, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you create your own wrappers and you have your own framework, and then you work with it.
A napkin look and feel? You remember? Napkin look and feel? Napkin.
No. Okay.
And Substance look and feel, right?
Substance, yes.
Substance looked nice. And the problem is, I built some enterprise software back then, and if you started with Substance, it already looked professional. So Substance was, I have to remember, it was even the Office look and feel, and it looked actually nice. And the problem is, back then something looked nice, managers thought it's ready. So what I found is a napkin look and feel. You can search for it, napkin. And if you, it looks broken. So it looks like a napkin, Windel. And so what I did, we activated napkin on purpose. So it is nothing is aligned. It looks like really bad. And then later we just switch one-liner and we did substance out of that, and it looks beautiful. So this was the entire So I really like Swing, I have to say. So the criticism like Swing looks bad. I'm like, what's your opinion about IntelliJ? Because IntelliJ looks nice, right? And they say, oh, this is not Swing. It's like, it is, right?
Yeah,
so this is like... and so Swing was actually, in one point of time in Java 1, this was extreme GUI makeover, where they presented, nice-looking Swing UIs, and they were all great, really. The problem was maybe, you could build terrible UIs with Swing, which is harder with, let's say, Swift UI or something like this right now. But yeah. And another question, maybe the last one. The entire instrumentation you wrote by yourself, right? The entire engine, the entire performance is written by you both. So there is no like...
Yeah. You mean like the instrumentation, of course, is done in the native code where, where it reads the Java class file and parses it and adds stuff to it, and also has to deal with the pre-verification and so on. There's, of course, lots of problems. These things, of course, at the beginning were all very much easier. These problems came like step by step.
Yeah.
And also with instrumentation, we have this cool feature. It's called auto instrumentation, where you run it once and then it will tell you these methods cause too much overhead. You should remove them, exclude them from the instrumentation for the next run. So you can find a set of instrumented method recursively that will add low overhead. And that's, I'm not in favor of saying instrumentation is not good. Let's always use sampling, because instrumentation provides information that sampling cannot provide, like invocation counts, for example. And sometimes it's really useful to know how often something was called. And if you have a good set of methods that you instrument, then it can be very good. Can also be very low overhead, because like you should only instrument stuff that takes a long time, not very short-lived. And so that's also an option. But still, the same thing here. You have all these various ways to do things, and they all have different trade-offs, and you have to inform the user about them. The user has to choose that and be aware of what the problems are, and that is really difficult about profilers, and you need all the help you can get in the UI to navigate these problems.
So, and you wrote the entire stack from, you both, the entire team, so the entire profiler was written by you. So
Yes, we have written everything ourselves. Yeah,
this is even more amazing. So just really appreciate. Really cool project. So I didn't expect it such a thing, right? So interesting.
It's like 22 years of work in it, so that's pretty long time. It did not look like that in the beginning.
So you both are Java experts, because you do all the time, low-level Java programming, actually, right? All the time. So it's actually your job to...
Absolutely. Java and C++. C++ is our native language.
And you liked C++ actually, or you are happy to spend more time with Java? So what's your feeling about C++?
No, I don't think anybody really likes C++.
I liked it, actually. I was a huge C++ and a fanboy, and then Java came. So, but I really like seeing out the templates. It was like, you could build complex stuff for fun. So this is what I appreciated. So it was like I was drawn to the complexity somehow. You can overload everything. You can play with things. With small things. You can just spend a huge amount of time with nothing. This is what I like back then. So
compared to C,
yeah.
But then today you have these other options. But C++ is still very portable, and we could not use like Rust or anything like that. Of course, we would not like to rewrite everything, but we couldn't use it. We really need the portability to run on all. We support a lot of architectures where you have to compile it, and C++ we get a compiler.
Do you still like Java? So you have to spend lots of time with Java, but you still like to work with Java?
I like Java. I like where Java is going. Also, I'm a huge Kotlin fan. I program a lot of Kotlin, like all the website and the back end. I do all of that in Kotlin. So that's my third language.
Now it's a question, because you spend a lot of time of hacking with Java and Kotlin. I don't use Kotlin, because if you have Java 17 or Java 21, I don't think it is a lot, of added value to Kotlin. And what I don't like about Kotlin is you have Maven project of the Kotlin dependencies. I say, okay, so my point is Java 17.21 is good enough. If I would like to do something different, I would just ditch, the JVM altogether and take complete different language. So what I don't like is the fact that Kotlin needs libraries, and the libraries are depending on Java versions. So, the entire thing, I don't like the fact. This is the same story. I didn't like, Scala a lot. And this was the same feeling I had back then. And I looking at Kotlin, I reviewed some Kotlin projects, and I cannot see, find the killer feature. And the longer we wait, the more, Java features will get. The coroutines in Kotlin now maybe no more. And the question is, I understand you. Maybe you are a little bored with Java, say, in the Kotlin, or is it something which you say, okay, I really would like to use Kotlin because...
Let's do another podcast about this, because I would have a lot to say about that. I think the multi-platform stuff is the killer. And that's what I, for example, use for the website, where I then don't write JavaScript, I write Kotlin. Mm-hmm. And I have this common code.
Then we have to do this. And I also wanted to ask you about Perfino. We had no time for now, so we do another follow-up.
I'm happy to come back if you want to have.
So what I would like to chat with you the next time is Perfino, Kotlin, and sampling versus instrumentation. Just a little bit deeper, that we understand, because I had to know already a podcast with Bitrace, and we talk about sampling, and I know JVisual VM. I use sampling a lot in JVisual back then, and maybe we can even contrast JVisual VM to JProfiler, because it's fair. I think it's open source. It's not like your competitor or whatever. So we can just say, okay, what's
absolutely.
So this is like to the listeners, and I'm happy to promote JProfiler. I mean, this is a great tool built by a small team, which I really like. This was always my idea. A small team can achieve anything, and this is why I'm asking so many questions, because I don't get huge teams, 50 developers building something. They always, if I see such projects, I'm asking them, what you're building, operating system, or what's going on here, because so you can achieve with a dedicated team almost everything you like, right? And I don't think if you will have 10 developers, that you will be 5 times faster. Maybe it wouldn't fly at all. So this is the interesting question. So perfect. And all listeners should go and buy a JProfiler, right? This is on EJ Technologies is the website, and the website, because it's built in Kotlin, it looks worse than the JProfiler, I have to say. Also if you go to the website,
actually, I'm doing this for the new website. The current one is running is a Grails website.
Okay, because this looks really. If you look at the website, this was the reason why I probably didn't bought the JProfiler. But the JProfiler looks orders of magnitude better than the website, I have to say. So this is. I hope the Kotlin will solve the problem. But with this Grails one. But I like the icons. This is the old one, the JDG. This is this was the old awards. I really like some.
Yeah, we have to remove that.
But I still like the icons. So now if you create a new website, I think it should improve your sales.
Okay.
It will, I think, because and so next time we have to cover Perfino and maybe install4j a little bit, and of course Kotlin. And you have to go to EJ Technologies. You can click on download. You can download and you can buy JProfiler, which is called kind of perpetual license, right? So if you buy one, you get support for 1 year, right? But you can keep it forever. This is how it works.
Yes, the license will not expire. So the major version that you purchase, you can use that forever.
Perfect. This is also important. Thank you a lot. It was really fun to meet someone near of me, which builds great software. And I was 20 years or more not aware that EJ Technology is a German company, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much.
Wir müssen warten, bis die